Hi, everyone, and welcome to AutismBC Talks, the RDSP and DTC session with the Disability Alliance BC. My name is Jake Anthony, and I'm the Program Ambassador for AutismBC. And I'm glad to be joining you today from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples of the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh. And I'd like to lift my hands in respect and to give thanks for being able to live, work, and play on their land. So I'm happy to be joined today by Lauren Stinson and Jenna Husseini from Disability Alliance's Access RDSP program. And during today's session, Lauren and Jenna are going to be talking about how people with disabilities can qualify for as well as access federal disability benefits. So with that, welcome to you both, and I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for having us. I'm just going to share my screen right now. Sorry, just give me a moment. Sorry, are you able to see my screen? Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so today we will be talking about, Lauren and I will be discussing the disability tax credit and the registered disability saving plan. Sorry, my slide is not moving. Oh, yeah, sorry again. We are from the Disability Alliance BC. The Disability Alliance BC is a provincial cross-disability organization. Our mission is to support people with all kinds of disabilities to live with dignity, independence as equal and full participants in the community. Today, Lauren and I will be talking about the benefits of the disability tax credit, who can apply, and what is the eligibility criteria, and how to get your doctor's help on the application. And also, Lauren will be discussing the registered disability saving plan, who qualifies for it, and who might benefit from the grants and bonds. Just let me introduce myself and Lauren. We are community advocates from the Access RDSP program at the Disability Alliance BC. We help people one-on-one to apply for the disability tax credit, and we guide them through the process. And we are happy to be presenting today. So what is the disability tax credit? The disability tax credit was designed as non-refundable tax credit intended to help the extra medical costs Canadians with severe or prolonged mental or physical impairments pay. I will go through the terms severe and prolonged, and I will be explaining it in details. Also, the credit helps people with disabilities or their support, let's say their family support or their caregiver, to reduce the amount of income tax that they may have to pay. Here's some statistics that I want to share with you. According to a study that was done in 2018, A research study found that only 40% of Canadian adults with qualifying conditions currently benefit from the disability tax credit due to significant barriers to access. So there's a big barrier to access the disability tax credit, and even sometimes people do not know about it. So they might say, "Oh, I don't qualify
Yes, Max.
because I don't know about it." So what is the benefit of the disability tax credit? Applicant for the disability tax credit can pay less tax, and then also can get a portion of a disability amount based on personal income tax. And the number is $8,662 for the year 2021. If applicant or their person or the person who is claiming the disability tax credit does not owe income tax, then they do not get the money back as a refund. Also, the applicant can transfer the credit, the disability tax credit, to a caregiver, as we mentioned earlier, to help reduce their taxes. And also they can go back 10 years and get a refund on the taxes that they paid before they apply for the disability tax credit. I'm going to talk a little bit about the supporting family member, also like the benefits that the supporting family member can get if they claim the disability tax credit on their income. And then we took part A from the application and we just put it here so that you can see it. It says individual section, amount, the supporting family member, and it's question number 3, the person claiming the disability. So the disability amount will be applied to the disabled individual income taxes to the applicant first. Then the disability amount will be applied to the support person income tax second. So first the applicant, and then it will be applied to the support person second. And then there's a box in the application. We just put it here just to show you. It says previous tax return adjustments. Are you the person with disability or the legal representative, or if the person is under 18, or their legal guardian? You can just tick yes or no. Hopefully by the end of the presentation, we can go through, if we have enough time, we can go through the application, the disability tax credit application. Other benefits for the disability tax credit, applicant can get other helpful benefits, such as the Canada Workers Benefit Disability Supplement, the Child Disability Benefit if we are applying for a child. Certain medical expenses you can also claim it as a disability support deduction. Caregiver credit, home buyer's amount, the home accessibility tax credit, eligibility for qualified disability trust status. We can go, if you want me to provide more information on this, maybe by the end of the presentation I can send you more information. Also preferred beneficiary election option, certain education related benefits such as the $500 scholarship exemption. Now I'm going to talk about who is eligible for the disability tax credit, who can apply for the disability tax credit. Applicant must have a severe and prolonged impairment. This impairment can be mental, either mental or physical, or it can be accumulative, which is like both. A severe impairment means the applicant has either a market restriction. A market restriction means that either the applicant has a very restricted, or the applicant is very restricted in one basic activity of daily living. This means either they cannot do the activity, or they need a lot of time or a lot of help to perform the daily activity. And when we say take a lot longer to do the activity compared to another person same age without their disability. And also applicant can qualify under the cumulative effect of significant restrictions. This means that the applicant is restricted a little less, but in 2 or more of the activities. The cumulative effect is equal to a market restriction. And then I'll give you example about cumulative effect. Let's say an applicant is restricted 40% in mental health area, and 50% in walking, feeding, or dressing. So together they form a cumulative effect of significant restriction. Also, the severe means that they fall under the life-sustaining therapy. This means that the applicant is in need of therapy that keeps them alive and takes a lot of time, at least 14 hours a week of their time. So this is they might be eligible to apply under the life-sustaining therapy. Sorry, do you have any questions so far? No? No, now let's talk about the prolonged. What does prolonged impairment means? This means that the impairment has lasted or will last at least 1 year, 12 months. So it has to be at least for 1 year or 12 months. It's very important to remember that the disability tax credit does not have to do with whether someone can work or go to school or maybe exercise. It does not depend on their income or assets. So unlike the persons with disability designation provincial benefit, the disability tax credit does not look at your ability to work or to go to school or to exercise. So we mostly look at the ability to perform daily activities, and then I'll go in details right now with them. So there are 8 categories that we look at when we are applying for the disability tax credit. We look at the ability, if there's any restriction in the vision, restriction in speaking, restrictions or inability eating or preparing meals or making food, hearing, walking, eliminating ability to go to the washroom and manage bowel or bladder function, dressing, mental health functions. So how to apply for the disability tax credit? In order for you to apply, there's 2 ways: either the digital form or the paper form. So for the paper form, you can just fill out the first page of the form with or without the help of an advocate. Take the form to your doctor or your specialist to be finished, the doctor who's gonna sign this application, and also send in a completed form to the Canada Revenue Agency, either by mail or online through my CRA account for people who have online account with the CRA. This is for the paper form, and for the digital form, The first step is to talk to the doctor first or the specialist about filling out the form online. And then you can just fill the first page of the form with or without help of the advocate. And the last stage is send in a completed form to Canada Revenue Agency, either by mail or you can submit it through my CRA account. I will go through the forms by the end of the presentation, just to show you the how the form look like and everything. This is very important point about that disability is not directly connected to your diagnosis. So approval for the disability tax credit is not connected how severely you are impaired by your restrictions. And stating your diagnosis makes you restricted in mental health functions is not enough information. What you need to do is you need to provide examples on how your disability or diagnosis impacts or affects your daily living activities, how your disability restricts you from performing daily activities. Who can fill out Section 2 of the disability tax credit? There's a couple medical practitioner here that can, professionals that they can fill it for you. Medical doctor can fill all sections. Nurse practitioner can fill all sections. The optometrist can fill the vision category. The audiologist can fill the hearing category, hearing part. Occupational therapist can do the walking, feeding, and dressing, or the cumulative effect of these categories. The physiotherapist can do the walking. Psychologist can do the mental health functions necessary for everyday living. The speech language pathologist can do the speaking category. And yeah, there's no preferred medical professional. It depends on the condition. So the form, the disability tax credit form, will ask you about your restriction in each of the category. We just took a part and we put it here just to show you how it looks like. So the form will ask you, do you take any medication? Or do you use any medical devices or therapy? And we'll ask you about the severity of your disability. Is it mild, mild to moderate, moderate, or moderate to severe, or very severe? And also the form will ask you about the frequency. It could be rarely, occasionally, often, usually, or severe. And then also there's a section about multiple restrictions. So if your health provider is filling out application online, the CRA will determine whether or not you qualify under cumulative effects of significant restriction automatically. So let's say the health practitioner is filling the form online, and he or she mentioned the severity of and the frequency of your disability and how it's affecting your daily life. The CRA will automatically determine that you qualify under cumulative effect. It depends on your condition and how severe is your condition is affecting your daily life. Yeah, I just want to mention here that you need to keep in mind that eligibility for the disability tax credit is not based on your diagnosis. Eligibility is based on how you are restricted in your daily activities. And it's very, very important to provide examples about your restrictions, examples from daily living, how your disability is affecting your daily living activities, and how it's restricting you. And also, again, it's the CRA, not the medical practitioner, that determines the eligibility. So we have prepared some examples for you to share from the T2210 DTC form. And we have prepared something about speaking, speaking category, where like the application will ask you about like if you have difficulty speaking, word finding difficulty, and difficulty with articulation, and if the applicant faces some challenges with stuttering, and also inability to be understood without repetition. For example, the applicant needs repetition multiple times to be understood, and also any issues with vocal sound, and any also issues with selective mutism, unable to speak in certain situations due to specific medical condition. And also it's important to mention that if you take any medication, or if you use any assistive devices, or if you receive any any therapy or aids to help you perform daily activities. Also, we have prepared some of the examples about the speaking section here, that most of the applicant would maybe people with autism would have faced the same challenges. So, for example, here we prepared, due to the ADHD and anxiety, the patient experienced episodes of unmanageable outbursts. So this would be a good example to mention while preparing the disability tax credit form. Also, the patient is unable to communicate with others. They require at least 3 times as long compared to an average person or average kid their age without their disability to express themselves, and they need a lot of encouragement and guidance. Another example that would be very helpful as well is they have difficulty getting words out. For example, they speak at a higher volume most of the time when communicating with family members and healthcare professionals. Also, the patient speech includes incorrect structure and ideas while talking. So I think these are good examples, and it's very important to mention it while you're preparing the disability tax credit, or you can tell your doctor about it so that he can mention it if they are preparing an online form. Sorry, I'll hand it to Lauren right now.
So now I'm going to go into more detail for the mental functioning section, because I know for people with autism, the mental functioning section is really important. So for the mental functioning section, there's 3 main categories the CRA focuses on. They are adaptive functioning, which is a big umbrella term. So that includes self-care, which is like personal hygiene, waking up in the morning, being able to feed yourself. It also includes health and safety, which is like paranoia, panic attacks, if you understand basic road safety rules, as well as simple transactions and socialization. So adaptive functioning is a very well-rounded little area of the form. The second section is more straightforward. It is memory. For memory, it also covers long-term and short-term memory problems. And the third section the CRA looks at is problem solving, goal setting, and judgment. So the new form that came out in about, I think, September, October, now gives you check boxes for the mental functioning section. Previously, you just needed to write down all your restrictions in each area, but the new form actually gives you check boxes to fill out. So these are the main check boxes for each of the mental functioning sections. I'm not going to go through them all because there's a lot, but I'll go through a couple. So for the adaptive functioning section, there is, can the patient adapt to change? Can the patient process what someone is saying? Does the patient struggle going out into the community? Is the patient able to recognize danger and risk? Is the patient able to perform basic hygiene and self-care tasks? I also want to note that within the mental functioning section, there is an additional information box, so you can elaborate and provide examples on these checkpoints or add new information on how you're mentally restricted in the additional information box if your daily restrictions are not covered in these boxes here. For example, in the memory section, it mentions a lot of short-term memory restrictions, such as struggling to remember your personal information, birthday and address, or having difficulty remembering instructions. But the tick boxes don't really cover any long-term restrictions such as flashbacks or long-term memory lapses. So that would be something that would be helpful to put in an additional box on the form. And then the last section of the mental functioning that the CRA focuses on is judgment, problem solving, and goal setting. And their main boxes here is the client able to take medication and prescribe to their treatments? Are they able to carry out simple day-to-day plans? And how do they handle unfamiliar situations? So it's also really important to kind of note when faced with a problem, do they need assistance? What problems do they need assistance with? What problems do they struggle to complete independently? And things like that are important details to put down for kind of the judgment, problem solving, and goal setting section. So now I'm just going to read off a couple of examples that you can put down in the additional information section of the form for mental functioning. So the first one here is socialization. So for the socialization, this is an example you could put down. Requires longer to respond in conversation due to anxiety. Isolates most of the time due to depression. Is restricted in their ability to read social cues. Now the next one I'm going to read is the mental functioning one. So for the mental functioning one, for the memory one, sorry, the next one I'm going to read is the memory one. So the memory example is they need reminders to attend appointments and sometimes forget their own phone number, address, and name. They need reminders to stay on task. And as I mentioned in the chat before, we are going to send out this presentation afterwards, so don't worry about jotting all this down. We will be sending it out, so don't panic about that. So now I know a lot of you are parents, so we have a child section on how to fill out the disability tax credit for children, and it differs slightly for the mental functioning section. On the mental functioning section for children, you have two tick boxes on the form, and they need adult supervision at home beyond an age-appropriate level, and they need additional support from educational staff at school. And then under this section on the form, it gives you a box to go into more depth about these 2 points. So it gives you an area on the form so you can talk about what type of things does the child need supervision with, what kind of supports do they have at school. And then, as I said, the mental functioning section does have an additional information box. And these are some good prompt questions to add into the additional information box if you have a child. So does the child need one-to-one supervision for their safety? Does the child need frequent reminders and prompts to get ready for school? Does your child understand basic safety rules and basic road safety? Can your child express their needs effectively? Can your child communicate and be understood by their peers and siblings? Does your child struggle to play with other children and participate in organized sport? Does your child have any impulse issues that manifest, and how do they manifest? And then someone in the chat before was also asking about medication. So if your child has any side effects from any medication they take for like autism or ADHD or anything like that, this would be a good area to mention if they have any side effects that affect them in any of these areas. So another thing to keep in mind when filling out the form for a child is to keep in mind age milestones. And the really important thing to keep in mind is the bolded print at the beginning of the slide, which is my child is not expected to reach the milestones of their peers. So I'm just going to quickly go over what some age milestones are for 5 to 8, and the main milestones for ages 5 to 8 is becoming more independent, becoming more social within their own age group, and being more cognitively and mentally progressive within their ideas. So these are some examples we have put down that would kind of speak to not meeting those milestones. So our first one is that the patient has difficulty playing social games with other children and shows no interest in other children. For example, in their recreational program, they prefer to play alone most of the time. So this speaks to a lack of that socialization element that usually kids between 5 and 8 kind of develop. Our second point here that you can put down is to complete day-to-day goals, the patient must stick to their routine. And he will become flustered if the routine deviates. They struggle to make decisions independently if decisions are outside their usual routine. So this kind of showcases that they have trouble making decisions and processing new information without help from a parent or supervisor. And then the third point here speaks to kind of the lack of meeting educational milestones. So the patient receives one-to-one support from teachers while at school. They only take 2 classes currently, and they need frequent reminders and prompts to get ready every day for school. And their bedroom door needs to be knocked on about 20 times in the morning before they get up in the morning. So that's a good example of how they need prompts and struggle to kind of do things independently, as well as their educational barriers. And also, I want to note, there's a third way you're going to be approved for the DTC, and that is through life-sustaining therapy. Now, life-sustaining therapy is a bit tricky because it's really restrictive. You need to have therapy at least 2 times a week, and on average, 14 hours a week. But it is an option if you have kind of diabetic issues or kidney dialysis. You can get approved for the DTC through life-sustaining therapy. So that is an option. So I want to, sorry, I'm going to take some water. So I want to kind of refocus on some key phrases to use when filling out the form. So some key phrases are substantially all of the time. So your child or you need help completing a self-care task substantially all of the time. The patient requires assistance in a given task. The patient is unable to manage activity, or the patient takes 3 to 2 times as long to complete an activity. And I also want to note that when you're comparing yourself to 3 to 2 times as long. Always compare yourself to someone your same age without your restrictions. I always ask clients if they could compare themselves to a spouse or a sibling that's around the same age. We really want to focus on how you're restricted compared to someone who doesn't have your restrictions. So if you're a parent, or if you're talking about your child, do not compare themselves to, don't compare your child to a parent, and don't compare, if you're a parent, don't compare your ability to your child's. So always try to stay within that age, someone similar to your own age. And as I mentioned before, especially for children, it's really important to put down if they're expected to meet the milestones of their age group. And for what not to include, the ability to work, housekeep, manage a bank account, drive, or do recreational activities. These do not matter to the CRA. What I would suggest is stick within examples in the sections that the CRA is looking for. So stay within the examples that are connected to adaptive functioning, they're connected to memory, and they're connected to judgment, problem solving, and goal setting. Do not kind of branch out onto being able to work and manage a bank account and drive. Those are not beneficial kind of details to put down if they're not directly connected to an example within one of the sections. So now I want to go over some helpful tips on making and filling out your document. So to prepare for your appointment, as Jenna said, it's really important to provide those examples about how you're restricted in daily living, because diagnosis is not enough to get you approved. Especially for something like autism, you really need to provide those examples about how your autism affects you in your day-to-day life and how it restricts you day to day. So you really need to provide those examples here. And we can assist you in prompting those examples and helping you write the form more effectively. So you can always contact Disability Alliance BC for assistance there. You can also use our app. Our app is at the bottom. If you go to our website, Disability Alliance BC, the app is called the DTC app. And once again, I'll be providing these slides after the presentation. So this app goes through the form and it asks you questions. So then, and shoots out a PDF afterwards. So basically it kind of prompts examples that you can bring to your doctor for the doctor's appointment. So you have a better baseline when going into the appointment of what kind of information to put down on the form and talk to your doctor about. So submitting the form, there's 2 ways to submit the form. The first way is by mail, and you would mail that to the Winnipeg Tax Center. The address that you mail it to is also on the DTC form itself, but it's also on the slide as well. You can also submit your forms digitally online through the Canada Revenue Agency CRA My Account. So you can submit it online or through the mail. So once you submit it, it can take 3 to 4 months. After 3 to 4 months, you will receive a letter of determination or notice of determination in the mail. Now, if you want to know what's happening to your application, you can call the CRA at 1-800-959-8281 to check your status of the application. If you submitted your application online, you can also see what's happening with it through your CRA account. It will say it's being processed or if it's been approved. If you submitted it online, you will actually get your notice that you've been approved or denied before you get the letter of determination in the mail. But if you are denied, I would recommend to wait until you get the letter of determination before, moving forward with any action, because the letter of determination will give you more information on why you were denied in the first place. But you can figure out if you're approved sooner if you submit it online. So after your application has been checked over, there's three main things that can happen. The first one is that the CRA might have additional questions. It might send your doctor an additional questionnaire. This is important because if you haven't received the letter of determination from the doctor within the 3 to 4 months, they might have sent your doctor an additional questionnaire. So always check in with your doctor if you haven't heard anything back from the CRA to see if they received a medical additional questionnaire and to make sure they fill that out. The second option, once you submit your paperwork, is that you can be approved. So that's what we're shooting for. And it's really important that you can be approved indefinitely, or you can be approved for a set amount of years. So you can be approved from 2015 to 2020, for example. So it's really important to keep in mind when reviewing the letter of determination to see if you've been approved indefinitely, or if you need to reapply at a later date. For a lot of people, mental functioning restrictions, they usually approve, they're more likely to approve them for a set amount of years. And that's also really important to keep copies of your application, because as I said, a lot of people need to reapply, and it makes it so much easier if you have copies of your previous applications that were approved before. So I always recommend, before sending your copy off to the CRA, to photocopy it and keep it on file for yourself. Now, the third option for your application is that it is denied, which is not brilliant. This is not the option we want. But there's two main options that you have. You have option one is that you can add more information. Usually on the letter of determination, they will give you a very vague reason on why you were denied. So what you do is you provide more information to the CRA based on the vague information they gave you on why you were denied, and you send it off to the CRA. At Disability Alliance BC, we call it a second review. And almost all our clients that get denied, we get them approved on the second review. So I always recommend to clients do the second review first, because usually they're just missing some information in some area they want more clarification in. So always add more information first. But the second option is that you have 90 days to submit a formal objection to the Chief of Appeals Tax Court. So you can go to court if you think the CRA is completely wrong in their judgment. But as I said, I highly recommend adding more information to your application instead of going to court. So does anyone have any questions about the disability tax credit before we go into the registered disability savings plan?
Yes, I have questions.
Yes,
Could I talk, or should I put it in the chat?
you can talk.
Okay, so the disability tax credit, how does that work for separated parents who share custody with their child?
Well, you can only put down one. You can only put down one parent for the DTC. So because it's based on income tax, I would recommend putting the parent down that has the most income tax.
Okay, and then that, so the tax credit, my understanding is for 2021 was the disability tax credit of 8,662. So is that subtracted from your income? Is that non-taxable income then?
What happens is that it's a non-refundable income tax credit. So the income tax is the amount of money you pay to the government when you're working.
Right.
So
I can subtract,
which means you can't get any more than the amount of money you paid to the government in income tax.
right.
So usually most people do not, it's not as high as 8,600 for most people.
Right.
Usually it's around, like, what would you say, Jenna? Like around 1,000 700, like average?
That's how much money you get back?
Yes, per year. On average, I would think. Unless I'm wrong. What do you think, Jenna? As I said, it's based on your personal income tax you pay. So it's usually based on how much you work.
I mean, average.
Yeah.
It's on average.
So how do we split that between the two, my ex and I? I'm not sure. So does one parent, so you're saying the higher income earning parent should claim the disability tax credit? Okay. So then say hypothetically, that's me. Now I'm getting the tax credit. How do I share that? How is that shared between the two households where our son lives?
Well, regardless if you're split up, one parent can only fill out that one section, the supporting section. I would suggest, I mean, once it comes to,
he's being supported equally by both of us, 50% of the time. So he goes back and forth. So is there an option to each year the tax credit goes to the other parent? Like, could we flip flop each year and share it that way?
No. I would suggest just putting half the money that you get from the credit into your partner's bank account.
Oh, so it's going to have to be on the honor system.
Yes, there's no physical way to do that within the form. It would be really difficult to kind of go back and forth between parents.
Okay.
Within the structure of the form.
There's no way to split it 50-50 with the tax credit? She claims half, I claim half? No?
No.
So it's only one parent can claim it. So how do we decide which parent claims it? Is it whoever submits it first?
Well, I would recommend
the higher income.
I would recommend the higher income, because you would get more of the disability benefit, more of the disability tax credit
Benefit,
if you put in the parent that has the higher income. So that would be my suggestion.
Okay, so the higher earning parent applies to the tax credit, and then on good faith splits that 50-50 with the parent who does not receive the tax credit. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So what if the lower income parent has already claimed that? Can we change that?
You can change that. You need to send a letter into the CRA just with all your you restate that section on the form and then ask the CRA to kind of change the support person on the client's file.
And do you need a valid reason, or can you just say that's what we want to do?
You need to, as long as everyone signs the letter, then the CRA is usually okay with that, correct, Jenna?
Okay, because obviously it's just to get more money to change which parent benefits, right? Which parent's claiming it, and they're okay with that?
As long as you can, within that parent section, you do need to prove that you help with shelter, clothing, and food costs.
Yes, we both do that equally, yep.
So as long as you can prove that you also help with shelter, food, and clothing costs, it should be fine.
Okay. And at the end of this what we just talked about here, can there be some help for me to figure that out after? Because obviously we just talked about this, but I'd like some literature or some support or some links or something that can maybe cover this so I can refer to it back to it later.
Definitely. As I said, we're going to give you guys a PowerPoint to this presentation, as well as our emails will be at the end of the presentation. So if you want to email us for any further questions, like I can give you some sample emails to send to the sample letters to send to the CRA for that situation as well, if you want.
Okay. Now, just before I mute myself, are we going to talk about the disability credit benefits in this presentation today?
For this presentation, we're just going to talk about the disability tax credit and the registered disability savings plan.
Okay. where can I get, I'm sorry to take up so much of your time. Where can I get more information on the disability child benefit? Was it the CDB or the CDB? I can't remember the acronym. It's the child benefit, the monthly checks that go out to the parents. Are you familiar with that?
I think we have more information. We can send them that information, correct, Jenna? Yeah, I think I should be able to find that information for you as well.
Okay. So I think you've wrapped this up nicely for me. I appreciate you taking that time to explain this to me. And if we could get some follow-up at the end of this session here, just so I can refer back to and I'm clear, I can, clear as to how this works as far as separated parents and claiming the higher income parent claiming, please.
Okay. There's a lot of questions in the chat. Do you want me to go through the RDSP first and then go back to the questions in the chat later? Or Jenna, do you want to answer some questions?
It's mostly the questions in the chat is mostly DTC. So why don't we go through them now and then?
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll read the questions.
Okay, I just want to say thank you. I'm going to mute myself again. Thank you.
Okay. So Julie has a question. I want to know more about home buyer's amount and eligibility for qualified disability trust status, $500 scholarship exemption. I took Julie's email and phone number, and then I can send her more information on this. There is a question from my guest. Is there a downside to being approved? What if person has serious restriction, written language, but can manage a limited set of jobs, say assistant in special ED or assistant in water safety? Will the info provided to the CRA league affect person's job eligibility?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Both me and Jenna are on the DTC. I am approved for the DTC indefinitely. I rock the prolonged requirement. I ace that. So as I said, it has nothing to do with if you have assets or work and you can get the DTC. It should not affect your job whatsoever. The only people that know you're on the DTC is you, your doctor, and the person at the CRA that needs to approve your paperwork, as well as if you get anyone to help you fill out your taxes. It's not public information that you're on the DTC. So that should not affect your job or career in any way whatsoever.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. And also, as I mentioned before, the DTC has nothing to do with your ability to work or to go to school. There's another question. From Cedar, does the DTC need to be applied for every year? No. Lauren just mentioned that you can be approved for certain years and it expires and then you apply again, or you can just be approved for forever. Like there's no timeline. It depends on the condition.
Because you're only supposed to get the DTC when you're restricted. So for a lot of mental functioning people, they're optimistic that their mental functioning barriers will be improved within kind of a 5-year span. That's why they usually put people down that have like mental function restrictions for a 5-year span. But for like someone like me that has like a muscle disorder that's attached to brain damage, they're like, well, she's not gonna improve, so she's gonna be approved indefinitely. But usually they only improve you indefinitely if it's really, really kind of clear cut that your disability is not going anywhere.
To be improved, yeah. There's another question from Diana. I'd like more info on the DTC benefits if possible. My son, 13 years old, just been approved, going back 10 years, and we're really not sure where to start in terms of going back to get other benefits we may have missed. I took down your email address and your phone number, and we'll follow up with you. There's another question from Dave. I was denied by the CRA for the disability tax credit when I applied for the PTSD. Before I was diagnosed ASD, can I apply again with both together? Of course, Dave, you can just try again and apply again under both condition. We will leave our contact information by the end of the presentation, and you can get connected with us.
You can apply for the DTC as many times as you want.
Yeah.
That won't affect your new application.
Julie has had a question. We have applied for the DTC since my son was 1 year old. How now he's 18. I noticed you mentioned that after 3 to 4 years you have to reapply. It depends on each condition, as Lauren has mentioned. The CRA asks you to reapply just in case your condition has changed or improved. And
So,
it will say on the notice of determination that you get from the CRA, it will say how many years you were approved for.
so we're at the half an hour mark for the end of the presentation. So I think we should go into the RDSP and then answer any questions people have on the Registered Disability Savings Plan.
Sure.
And then maybe do an email and ask and answer any lingering questions.
Sure.
Okay, so this is the RDSP. So this is the biggest benefit you get from actually being approved for the disability tax credit. So what is the Registered Disability Savings Plan, and why is it so important? The RDSP was created by the federal government as a long-term savings plan for people with disabilities and their families. It can help disabled people put money away and won't affect their current disability benefits. And that's so important because almost everything affects your PWG and it affects your income, but the RDSP will not affect your other assets, which is brilliant. So who qualifies for the RDSP? You need to be a Canadian resident. You need a valid SIN number, so social insurance number. And most importantly, and most difficult, you need to be approved for the disability tax credit. Another important thing to keep in mind is the age criteria. You must open the RDSP by December 31st of the year you turn 59. But the more important year to remember is that you need to open up your RDSP by December 31st of the year you turn 49 to qualify for the grants and bonds that you get from the RDSP. So you need to open up your RDSP before you turn 49 to get the bonds and grants. So now I'm going to go into a bit more detail of the bonds and grants that you can get from your RDSP. In total, if you combine the grants and bonds together, you can get a total of $90,000 of grants and bonds. You will, within the lifetime of the RDSP, you can gain $70,000 in grants. Now, the way grants works is that for the first $500 you put in, the government will put in $1,500. On the next $1,500 you put in, the government will put in $2,000. So in total, you put in $1,500, and the government will give you $3,500 per year. And that will run a maximum of $70,000, which if you break that down is 1,500 or 3,500 per year for 20 years. So 3,500 times 20 is the 70,000 mark. So you can put in 1,500 per year for a span of 20 years. Now, this is the really exciting thing, is the bonds, because to get the bonds, you do not need to put in any money yourself. So you automatically get $1,000 in bonds put into your RDSP, regardless if you put any money into the account. So even if you can't put in the amount of money to get the matching grants, you can still at least get the bond money put into your RDSP account. The only catch is that your household income needs to be below $32,028 to get the $1,000 bond. If your family income is between $32,028 to $49,020, you can still get partial bonds, but you won't get the full $1,000 unless your household income is under $32,028. Now, it's really important. The maximum lifetime bond is $20,000. So that is also a 20-year span. In general, the RDSP is kind of a 20-year span of gaining grants and bonds. But that time period can be longer because, say, a child opened up an RDSP when they lived with their parents, and their parents' household income was higher than $32,000. So they didn't qualify for the grants and bonds. But when the child moved out, their own personal income was below $32,000. So that means they would qualify now for the 1,000 bonds, which could, expand the time period of the RDSP longer than the 20-year period. So it's also really important that you can retroactively claim these grants and bonds based on when you were approved for the DTC at a maximum of 10 years before you applied. So if you signed off on if you filled out the DTC and you were approved from like 2015, then you can retroactively claim your grants and bonds for your RDSP for the last, I guess we're in 2022 now, so last 7 years in my example. And for the bonds, the $1,000 will automatically be put into your account. Now, when going back for the grants retroactively, you can only put retroactively $10,500 per year for the grants and bonds. And if you're going back a lot of years, it can be tricky because, as I said, for the grants and bonds, they're split into the $500 and $1,000 mark, and they will retroactively go back through all the 500s first before they do the 1,000s. So it can get really tricky if you're going back a full 10 years and trying to retroactively claim your grants. So I would recommend speaking to like a bank specialist and a finance specialist if you're going back like a full 10 years retroactively, because it can get messy there. So even if you open up your RDSP before you turn 49, you can retroactively get your money back for at least that $10,500 per that 1 year. So withdrawals. So you can take money out once you turn 60. Early withdrawals are subject to the repayment rule or the 10-year repayment rule. So if you take money out before you turn 60, you need to pay back all the bonds and grants you received in the past 10 years. So technically, if you want to get all the benefits in grants and bonds and the 10-year rule, with the 10-year rule, it makes the RDSP a 30-year plan at minimum. So, and they put this 10-year rule in to make sure people use the RDSP as a long-term savings plan, because they didn't want people to use it to not use it as a long-term savings plan. So they put in this 10-year repayment rule to make sure people use the RDSP as a long-term savings account. So it's also important to note, if you open up an RDSP for a child and they gain all the grants and bonds within 20 years or so, and then you wait 10 years, you can also start taking out money sooner. But if you don't finish all the grants and bonds in the 10 years before you hit 60, then you automatically need to take money out. Oh, wait, hold on. I'm missing slides. I don't know why. Give me a second. Give me a second. Oh, hold on a second. For some reason, I was missing some slides. Bear with me. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Is that just, oh wait, hold on. Is that just black for everyone?
It is, yeah.
Yep.
Excellent, hold on. Can you see that?
Yep.
Excellent, okay, great. So I just want to emphasize taking money out of the RDSP. So there is a limit to the amount you can take out after kind of the 10-year rule has been followed. There was a formula, which I will go over on the next page. But if you did not put in as much money as the government, then you need to follow this formula and do not have as much control withdrawing money as if you had put in more contributions than the government. If you put in more contributions than the government, there is no limit to the maximum amount you can take out. So if you did not get any, say you're above 49, and you did not get any bonds and grants, there's absolutely no restrictions for withdrawing money, and there is no 10-year repayment rule. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. So if the government put in more money than you did, you do need to follow the formula, which I will go over on the next slide when withdrawing money. Oh, sorry. So this is the formula for withdrawing money from your RDSP account once you finish the 10-year rule or you turn 60. So what it is basically is the value of your RDSP divided by 3 plus your life expectancy, which is usually for the average person, they put 80, minus your age. So then you get, so this is the example, the value of this person's RDSP is 10,000. So based on the calculation of their average life expectancy being 80 minus 60, their current age, that means the payment per year coming out of the RDSP that you can withdraw would be $4,348. So for the RDSP, you can also apply for the 150 grant, which is put in place for children under 18, and it goes straight towards helping you fund your RDSP. So if you're thinking of opening up an RDSP for your child, I would recommend following this link, and it's relatively easy to gain. Okay, and this is our contact information. So if you want to contact us at all, please write down this information here. And now I'm going to open it up for questions.
Lauren, Jenna, thank you so much, and I really, really appreciate the time that you've taken to, talk about the disability tax credit and the RDSP today. And thank you everybody for attending. And we'll definitely, along with this recording and the PowerPoint that Lauren and Jenna shared, we'll send out contact information as well as like the links to Plan Institute and just ways that you can also get in touch with Disability Alliance BC as well. But thank you both so much.